Hello and welcome to the Sports Saga podcast on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Thank you for listening or watching. Please like this video, subscribe if you can. And for a weekly episode, Brady Kudo, along with Keegan Hamlet and our special guest, a do-it-all man for CBS Sports, the NFL, March Madness, PGA Tour, Buffalo Bills preseason announcer, Mr. Andrew Catalon. Andrew, welcome. Thank you for being here. Most importantly, how you doing?
Guys, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be with you. You know, I was doing the Providence game a couple of weeks ago. You came up to me and introduced yourself and said, will you come on? And I'm really, I'm glad you did that. I'm happy to do this. So it's going to be fun.
It will be. Thank you again for being here. We were just talking about it. We're going to get right into this. You've had quite the slate of games the past couple of weeks. We're definitely going to dive into that. But to start, let's learn more about you. Give us, tell us who Andrew Catalon is and give us what his career has been.
Sure. I mean, I'm 42 years old now, so time is going quicker than I thought. I always wanted to get into sports broadcasting growing up in New Jersey. Big sports fan, knew I was going to be good enough to play them at a big level. So I went to Syracuse. They have a great program. I was doing the student radio station there, WAER. Got to call Syracuse football, basketball, and lacrosse games. Really thought that play-by-play was going to be my start into my career after college, but then kind of fell in love with local television. I did an internship my senior year at Syracuse, and then my beginning of my career was in local TV, first in Burlington, Vermont, right out of college, and then for almost 10 years in Albany, New York. But when I was in Albany, the station was really good about allowing me time to still take some play-by-play opportunities on. They were really good about that. And I just kind of got the itch back again, like I was in college, to do more play-by-play. And thankfully, one thing led to another. I got a bunch of breaks as you need in this business along the way. And it led me to CBS full-time in 2014. So it's been there's really no one path in this business. I mean, if I thought I was play-by-play, then it was anchoring, then it was back. So everyone has a different route to where they end up. And I'm very grateful for the path that's led me to CBS.
So obviously golf, basketball, football, what do you enjoy most? What would you say is your favorite sport to call?
I love them all, and I'm not going to cop out. I mean, to me, NFL is my favorite thing because, growing up in New Jersey, it was such a big part of my family watching games every Sunday. It was usually the Giants at 1, the Jets at 4, and it's really special to be in an NFL booth every Sunday. I feel fortunate to do that. But to me, golf has really grabbed me. I'm so honored to be a part of the golf team at CBS. I play it. I'm not very good at it, but I play it, and it's fun to be out there with the golf crew. And then, as you said earlier, Brady, like, the March Madness or just the basketball games I've had. I mean, it's just been such a thrill ride and so many great moments in March and even in the regular season too. I don't want to diminish the regular season because especially for Providence, it's been a regular season to remember. So I love it all, but NFL is certainly I'm a huge fan of it.
Keegan, I know you had a couple of questions to ask Andrew.
Yeah. So Andrew, I was wondering, so obviously you get your color commentator. If you're the color commentator, you get a play-by-play guy. What's it like to work with some of the more experts in the field of broadcasting when you're covering games?
Keegan, I never really thought too much about my partner when I was starting out, and that's on me because it was more about how am I doing and how is my play-by-play and how am I growing. And I quickly realized that is the wrong way to look at it because during a broadcast, it's really one. You really have to be in sync with your partner. And as soon as I realized that, I think that I became more attuned to what they were saying. I think it was a more conversational broadcast. And I really feel that chemistry is very important. I mean, Steve Lapis and I have called over 300 basketball games together.
Wow.
It's crazy. And, James Lofton and I just finished our 5th year together. And I could look back to the first time I was with Steve and the first time I was with James. And I can definitely tell a big difference now. having all these reps together. So, that's one thing that I think when you're in college, it's all about your play-by-play and how you're growing. But now I realize that it really is about the partner as well and making them the star of the show when you're the play-by-play guy.
What's it like working with James Lofton? He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of, at one time he was arguably one of the best receivers in the NFL. What's it like working with someone who has achieved that much success on the gridiron?
Yeah, I think one of the best things about James is for all of his accolades and in the Hall of Fame, he's a very humble guy. And he would never look at me and diminish, my knowledge or my prep. And we get along so well. And again, there was a feeling out process early in our partnership. I don't know his quirks. He doesn't know my quirks. He doesn't know when I want to get in or vice versa. So it took a while. It took, I'd say over a year to really feel comfortable with James. But now it's like, we just jump in the booth and it's go. I mean, there's no off season. It's just right away that chemistry and that partnership picks up where it left off from the final week of the season before. So James is a wonderful man. Had dinner with him a couple months ago, him and his wife, Beverly. And it's become a really good friendship.
Going back to the province game we met you at, we were, I'd say, about 2 feet away from Steve Lapis, and Keegan will tell you we spent about 5 minutes arguing who's going to talk to him first.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, Andrew's not even here. So Steve Lapp, I mean, we had one of his former players on here last week, and Chris Walker. What is he like? Because he's, he was very successful at Nova, and then he went on to UMass. What's he like?
He's the best. He has become such a good friend. He has so much passion and energy. And I think that, when you look around college basketball now, there's not a ton of analysts currently who are former coaches. And I love the perspective that he gives, not to say that the former players are not good, because I don't feel that way at all, but it's just a different perspective, I think, than a lot of other college basketball broadcasts. And he has such great knowledge of the sport. He studies it. He's still so connected with coaches, and he's just a fun guy to be around. I mean, we have so much fun together when we're not on air that it just carries over when we are on the air together. Like, he can make fun of me, I can make fun of him. We really have a great chemistry. And, again, I said it before, most people think I'm making this number up. I mean, we've called about 300 games together. And, there's not a lot of other partnerships in any sport where you get that many reps with the same person. So I feel really lucky that CBS has kind of matched us up. We get along really well, and we have a lot of fun.
And you see that too, right? Like Nance and Raftery, Gus Johnson and Jim Jackson. The more reps they get together, like you and Steve, right? Like the more reps, we get to, like, Keegan and I were partnered. This Keegan and I were partners for 2 years, and our connection off the air, it really started on the air, because I think, we naturally had a good chemistry.
Yeah.
It translated to off the air, and look where we are now. So you having dinner with James and you being around Steve, it shows. And I think that's why, and just in my opinion, that's why we see consistently these pairings. Like, if I learn you're calling, I'm like, oh, is he doing it with Lapis? Honestly, when I heard you were calling one of those games, I said, is he doing it with Lapis? Because it shows. And so, like a fan, I take note of that, right? Like, it's just really interesting. I've always thought how connections build on the air and off the air as well. But moving away from basketball, you've done many sports. The Olympics. What is it like, the Olympics? You've done 3 different Olympic sports. What is it about the Olympics?
Yeah, it was a wonderful time when I was doing the Olympics for NBC. I ended up doing 5 of them, and 3 of them I was on location. 2 of them I was calling them remotely. And it is a lot of hard work. I mean, you really go at it for 2-3 weeks, and it's long days, and it's tons of research. And I love that. I really got up for that, especially curling. It meant a lot of my career. People started hearing me doing curling matches in Vancouver in 2010. And it's such a fun sport. It gains popularity every 4 years, especially in the United States. So it meant a lot to me in my career, and I have a lot of great memories of, the London Olympics, calling tennis at Wimbledon. I mean, that is something that is a big highlight in my career. And then going to Russia in 2014 and calling all the curling there. So I have a lot of great memories, and I'm very grateful for my time doing those Olympics because they meant a lot to me.
I don't know about you, Keegan, but curling in my household come Winter Olympic time, that's the sport. At least
No, I love curling when it
with
comes
me and
to
my
like,
dad, that's the sport. Curling and hockey. I think it's honestly, in my opinion, one of the most underrated sports. I enjoy watching because there's a whole strategy to it. It's not you push a stone down, right? There's a
yeah,
whole
it's
strategy.
almost like bocce ball, almost like on a court, except it's like on a little rink, and you got to get all the sweepers out, and you don't see that in bocce.
Yeah, there's so much strategy to it. And I think the big thing for me was I had never done it. I didn't really know too much about it when they gave me the opportunity. So the questions that I had in my head as I was watching it unfold were probably what a lot of people like you guys were watching at home thinking, what are they doing here? What are they doing there? And that kind of became the way I broadcasted it, in the sense of, all right, if I'm not really sure what's going on here, there's probably other people watching in the United States that aren't either. And that kind of became the way to for me to learn about it, but also to educate the viewer as well. So it was a lot of fun. By no means, I mean, it's really, if you try to do it, it's really hard. I mean, I can't even like keep my balance to throw the stone down the ice. So it's a fun sport, and I root for all those guys and girls. I hope that they continue to have success.
Was that your favorite Olympic sport to call?
I think so. Yeah, I'm a big tennis guy as well. But I mean, yeah, curling was fun. It was something that everyone rallied around. And, the United States had, so many great characters and competitors that it certainly became a big part of my broadcasting career.
Now let's move. We're going to go over NBC. We're going to go back to CBS for a minute. 7 years full time. And I was reading, not to stalk you or anything, I was doing my research, your bio on CBS Sports. Over a decade, at least part-time. What's kept you there so long?
Yeah, well, it's a great place to work. The people there make it feel like a family. And as we talked about before, the sports that I call NFL, college hoops, and golf are my favorite things. I mean, to me, they have the perfect mix of what I love to announce. So it's just a perfect match, and I'm very lucky to work there. And they give me great opportunities and great games, and I'm very thankful for it.
Speaking of great games, you have had some amazing calls over the years. And let's go personally, my favorite. Keegan may disagree. I'm going to go back to Georgia State Baylor, roughly 6-7 years ago. RJ Hunter for 3. Georgia State upsets Baylor. RJ Hunter later taken by the Celtics in that year's draft. What led up to that? Take us through like the process, that game, and what made that call so special to you?
Yeah, there's no doubt, Brady. That's one of my favorites. Anytime you're in the NCAA tournament and you have a 14 seed, they kind of become the fan favorite as long as you're not playing in, someone's backyard. So I remember, even though Baylor was a good team, that as time went on in that game, the arena really started to pull for Georgia State. And even though they were down for most of the game, you just got the sense that if they made a little 5-6-0 run, that the building would really come to life in support of them. And that's kind of the way it unfolded. I mean, they didn't look good for the majority of that game. Baylor started missing some shots, and they made this little run, and they just got a lot of momentum. And I think they were feeding off the crowd. And, when we've watched these March Madness games, and they're never over, and that it's just kind of set up for these dramatic finishes. And it was slowly building. And then you factor in that you had the coach who the star player on the team was his son, and the coach was on a scooter and a stool because he had torn his Achilles celebrating the week before. I mean, there's just so many different parts of that story that made it special. And then in the end, the kid made an incredible shot, And it was just, the building was going nuts, and it was March, right? I mean, that's kind of what we come to expect with the NCAA tournament.
Anything can happen in March. Ian Eagles said that perfectly a few years ago.
Sure.
Now I'm going to go to something more recent, maybe Keegan's favorite call of yours. And all three of us were there. Bynum from Pawtucket. We all know the build-up for that game. We all know what it meant. We all know the season Jared Bynum's having. Why Pawtucket? Is that the first thing that just came to mind? Like, why?
Yeah, honestly, like, I don't plan out this stuff.
No,
now,
no.
If I know someone's going to win a championship, I'll maybe think about the end of the call. Like John Fanta, you mentioned him before. I thought he did a great job when Providence won the regular season title. He had something that he had thought of before, and he delivered it. He delivered it perfectly. And I would have done that. I probably would have thought, well, Providence has never won. If they win, what am I going to say at the end of the game? But something like the Bynum shot or anything else, that's just kind of what comes out. I think it has to be natural, and it's more genuine that way. And I don't know, it just came out. I don't know a ton of towns or cities in Rhode Island, but I do know Pawtucket. And I think in that scenario, especially with that game, it was so crazy, and I almost was like delirious. Like it just came out. It was fun, but I had so much fun at Providence this year with the crowds. I mean, the fans were just incredible at these games, and it reminded me of a March atmosphere. And I think when you get in that mode of like, these fans are great, this scene is great, you just got to go with it, and you got to have fun. And that's what came out of my mouth at that moment.
Are there any other, like, maybe moments or any highlights personally, like, you think of your career that maybe we didn't mention?
No, I mean, certainly RJ Hunter is on that list, big time. NFL, I've had some, last second field goals or overtime walk-off touchdowns, but for me, it's just doing the job in the big moment. Like, when that big moment happens, I feel it's really incumbent on the play-by-play guy to nail the big moment. You've got to match the excitement. You got to match the energy. And that's something that I work hard at and take a lot of pride in, to make sure that when that big shot comes or that touchdown happens, that you are there as a fan. And that's a lot of the way that I see the games. Like, sometimes I'll have fans say, oh, you like this team or you like that team, because I get excited when somebody does well. But to me, that's the way I was as a fan growing up. I was a big Yankee fan. I know you guys are from New England, so you probably don't
We'll
like
let
that.
it slide.
But,
it's good.
yeah. But like, I want, when somebody hit a walk-off home run, I wanted the announcer to go nuts, because I was going nuts on the couch. And that's kind of the way I feel from when I do games now. Like, there's somebody at home watching Providence that's really pumped up that Jared Bynum just hit a deep three. I need to match who they are. Now, if Xavier went down the court and hit a three in the other end, I also have to remember that the Xavier fan is at home watching, and I have to get equally excited for that. And that's kind of what keeps me going in those big moments.
And you did, because I watched that game back, and when Scruggs hit that three, the arena went silent, and you matched the same energy. And that's what I've always liked about you. And I said, when Keegan and I were promoting the show, at least my friends were like, Catalon. He was like, he's awesome. He's really, like, very energetic. I said, yep, I know. That's what. So,
well, that's nice of you to say. I appreciate it, and it's fun. It has to be fun, right? I mean, we're calling sports. I mean, we got to have fun with it.
now we were looking. I'll let Keegan go this way, but your wife. I'll let Keegan take the reins on this, but your wife is also in the same field as you.
Yeah, also broadcasting to her somewhat in the media in one way or the other. Has she had an influence on you in your career too? Have you had an influence on her as well?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, we both went to Syracuse, but did not know each other there. I was a couple of years older than her. But, this business, as you guys are starting to find out, is very different. It's very competitive. It's very cutthroat. It's not your 9 to 5 job. There's strange hours, there's weekends, there's holidays. And I think that's where we have a great understanding of each other, where if there's a big fire, she has to go cover it. Or if I have to call a game on Christmas, she understands that. So I think that's been a big part of just that give and take, that we know that, our jobs are different, our schedules are different, and we have a good understanding that, there's some times where I can't be here and vice versa, and we make it work. So that's been a big help for us.
Well, that's a big credit, because I could say there's many people that would just not, right? Or they would, prioritize themselves. So I think that's really, really cool that you guys have that connection. That's really cool. I personally, one more thing, the preseason for the Bills. What's that been like? You've been doing that for a few years. What's that been like?
It's great. I mean, we're talking a lot about relationships and chemistry and partners. And, one of my closest friends that I've developed through broadcasting is Steve Tasker. I mean, we were at CBS together for many years, and now we call the Bills preseason games together. And I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Steve. I mean, even when I go up to call a Bills preseason game, I don't even stay in a hotel. I stay at his house. I mean, that's how close we are.
Wow.
So I love calling the Bills preseason games, and it really helps me also in the regular season. If I get the Bills, I've developed relationships with the GM, coach, PR staff. So that helps me too when we get into the regular season. But it's been an awesome experience to be with Steve in the summer. We could play golf, we could go out to dinner. So we have a great time.
I personally, I think we've got Keegan. I don't know about you. I'm out of questions. I know it's not usually not a good thing, but you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I have one more question. You mentioned you went to Syracuse University, obviously great broadcasting program. I was at a pre-college course. I have a couple friends who went there. They're doing great in their broadcasting program. My question for you, you said you knew you were going to do broadcasting right away. You got with the program, with the students, with the sports. What was it that you were planning to do if it was like broadcasting's not going to work out? Like, did you have a second thing in mind, maybe a minor?
Yeah, that's a great question, because as we've talked about here, it's a tough business. I mean, you need to get breaks along the way. You need to be in the right place at the right time, and it doesn't always work out for everyone. I mean, you could have a double major 4.0 GPA, and you might not be able to get a job out of college in this field because it's just so different. I mean, a lot of it is how you sound and how you look, and it's just a very different business. So there's no doubt that as I was learning in college that, this might not work, might not get a job. I mean, I remember I was just happy to get a job offer when I graduated. And people today still will say, like, what's your dream assignment, or what's your dream job? And to me, it was always just getting a job in this field. That I never in school thought like, oh, I want to call the Super Bowl one day. I thought in school was, I got to get a job when I graduate, and that was the big step. So if I wasn't good enough, I don't know what I would do. I mean, that's a great question. I don't know where I would be right now, but I know that I worked hard, and I just kept trusting that. I mean, my first job in Vermont, the station closed. Like, we had a meeting on a Tuesday, and they said our last day of doing the news is Friday.
Wow.
So you never know. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was getting ready to move back home with my parents, and didn't know if there was going to be another opportunity out there. And then luckily I was able to get a job in Albany a couple of months after that. But in this business, things happen and change all the time. And I think you got to understand that there's different waves, there's different highs and lows. And I think if you're good and your heart is into it, and you get some good breaks, that you can make it. But it's definitely not easy.
Well, now that you've established yourself as, a star in this business, do you have that next dream, or that dream assignment, or do you just focus on, whatever the future brings?
Yeah, no, I don't take any of these games or days for granted. I love having fun. I love doing the research for it. And the next assignment is always the biggest one for me. Like yesterday, I had an overtime game, Alabama LSU is great, and now I'm on to the next, which is the Mountain West Conference tournament later this week in Las Vegas. So that's just kind of my mentality on it, and just enjoy the ride and do the best that you can.
Do you have championship game as well, or just quarters and semis?
So for the Mountain West, I have the quarters, 2 quarters, and then both semifinals. And then I'll head home and get ready for Selection Sunday and the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament.
That's awesome. Mountain West, honestly, it's on the rise. So I think that tournament in particular is going to be a lot of fun. And it just so happens that the guy who has had more overtime games than anybody this year is going to have a lot of fun in that Mountain West tournament. So good luck. Obviously, with the tournament coming up, wherever you might be, whatever regional, good luck. I think this tournament is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know how you guys feel at CBS, but us at home, we can't wait for Selection Sunday. We can't wait for the tournament to start. How are you guys at CBS and Turner projecting this tournament to go? Do you think it's going to be more of an exciting one?
I mean, based on the games that I've had the last month, I would hope that it would continue. It's been a good run for me and Steve, so we're just hoping it continues. And now I just want to say to both of you guys, really impressed that you came up to me before the game, introduced yourself when I was up there, and asked me to come on. I think that was cool. I'm glad you had me on. I wish you guys all the best and hope that your success continues during college and afterwards. So I'm really happy to be with you guys and wish you good luck going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do. We appreciate that, honestly. Again, good luck this season. Golf's coming up. Best of luck to you and your team the rest of the way. That's gonna conclude this episode of the Sports Saga podcast. Next week, it is Selection Sunday, and we have Emmett Prosser from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. He has covered the Bucks. He has covered the Marquette Golden Eagles over the years. He will be joining us. We're talking about Selection Sunday. For Keegan Hamlet and the man, Andrew Catalon, this is Brady Kudo. Have a great rest of your day.